Hello and welcome back to Here Technologies, coming to you live from our headquarters in Huntsville, Alabama. We hope you're enjoying the show. It's a big one this year, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of really good stuff out there to see. This is our final session of this Thursday, and what we're going to do is we're going to talk more about our Pro system, and this time about the app, the iOS app, which actually allows you to control your Pro mixer, or really the system, via your iPad or your phone, and makes it just a lot more versatile. It's a great tool to be able to use. It can do a lot of stuff, but a lot of stuff you can really do from the mixers themselves. So, there's a fine balance as to what you really want to do and can do and which one's really easier. The iOS app is actually connected to the system via the hub right here and via, if I can see it, the HBus in right here. So you want to get your wireless router, and we're just using an old Airport Extreme for this, and plug her in here. And basically you leave your hub just on your regular input. Don't go to HBus, it'll see it. And that's how you actually get connection to your phone or your iPad, which is what we're going to use here today as a pad, in order to see the system and do what you need to do. It's basically, wireless access points are so inexpensive these days. It's just a really, really good idea to just dedicate one to the Pro itself.
Don't put this on your building
Don't
network,
put it on
please.
the network. Yes, I've had a lot of phone calls about that, and it just makes life easier for you, really.
If you want the reliability,
yes,
don't do that.
Yes.
Even really with Dante in general, it's a much more reliable if you've got it on its own dedicated network.
Definitely.
Not conflicting with other network devices, IP addresses, things like that. I mean, if you're depending on reliability for your show, do you really want the system to go down right before you start performing? Just keep this stuff off the building network.
Yes.
You're really going to have better luck that way. Mm-hmm. Now, one thing we'll point out is that the app was never really thought about when we first designed the HearBack Pro system. So it was something that kind of came a year, I think, into it after it had been released in 2015.
About that.
So this HearBus in, and then below it is the HearBus out. These were originally intended just for stacking hubs, but because we based everything off of gigabit Ethernet, it worked to our favor that we could use that HBus in connection as a access point connection. Now, if you do have a larger setup with multiple hubs, they'll chain out of the very first hub into the second hub, out of that hub into, and so on. But your very first hub in that chain is going to have that HBus in connection available, so you can use that for your wireless access point. But I will make one note here. When we designed this, it was intended to only be connected to other hubs, so we actually wired it up internally to only link at a gigabit. Mm-hmm. So you need to make sure that whatever access point you're plugging it into has a 1000 base T or gigabit wired Ethernet connection. It doesn't need to be gigabit wireless, which that's fine too. It can be. It can even be older, like wireless G, which is completely fine as long as the wired connection is gigabit. So that's one thing that we do see some people run into. They'll say that when they run the app, the mixers don't show up, and that's usually what it is. It's plug and play. All of our stuff uses UDP communication, so there are no IP addresses for any of these things. You don't have to worry about, setting up DHCP or setting up static IP addresses, none of that, because this stuff all uses UDP. So it's all plug and play, basically.
But I'd like to add one other thing here. When you do get your network up and running with this, please make sure it's a secure network. We've had a few folks that remember that anybody that you can go download the app to your phone, and it's free. Just go get it. And if somebody happens to be in the audience or whatever and has the app and you don't have a secure network,
yeah, Max was just telling me a story about a church, and somebody in the congregation downloaded the app and was controlling the mixers of the musicians
and they
during
called
the service.
and I was actually called and asked, how can the mixers change on their own?
No, they don't.
But they don't.
So yeah, make sure it's secure. You don't want anybody else downloading the app and controlling your system. So, okay, well, I guess let's just go ahead and dig into this.
Yep.
We've got 3 Pro mixers set up here, and we have a hub with a Airport Extreme plugged into it, and I've got a iPad here on the document camera, and so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to launch the app, which this app is available from the App Store for free, so you can go out and just search for Here Technologies or HearBack. It'll come up. Download that and connect your iPad or your iPhone, any iOS device, to the wireless access point that you have connected up to your hub and configured for security. Launch it, and it's going to automatically go out and find the mixers. As you can see, there's a list of devices over here, and it sees all 3 of them. I've named them ahead of time, so I know which one I'm looking at. Before you name them, it's going to put a default ID, which you can still see just below it. I don't know if you guys can read that, but it's a little bit darker, and it basically has a 4-digit address. The first one's 880F and so forth. That's a factory ID that we set, and so that is going to be your default name before you rename it to something a little more usable, like left mixer, NAMM mixer, like I've got here. So first thing I'm going to show you is at the top, you've got hub and sources. If I touch this, this is going to show me some levels, and it's also going to show me stereo and mono settings for the inputs. These are the physical inputs coming into the hub, and there are actually more if I scroll down. A hub is capable of up to 32 channels. I currently only have 1 hub, and it says hub 1 here. If you were to connect up another hub, you would actually have a couple different buttons here, say hub 1, hub 2. Up to 4 hubs are possible, so you could have up to 128 inputs right here if you had 4 hubs connected. You can name the channels. By default, you can see I haven't named these ones. They're going to come up as just like input 17, 18, 19. But you can put a more usable label, like I've got drums and bass guitar. Now you notice there's not a text box here. That is because I've set that to stereo. If I go back to it being mono, it'll let me put a name on that channel. But my drums are stereo, so I'm going to leave that alone. And when you change this name, it actually is going to store that name into a text file that's on the hub. You can also edit the names in that text file. If you plug USB into the back of the hub, it's going to show up as a mass storage device, and you're going to see a file called config.txt. You can go in there and you can edit the names and the stereo links in that file as well. That's another way to do it. We also have a desktop program called the Hub Configurator, and it allows you to do this on there as well. So there's 3 different ways to do these settings if you like. So whatever works best for you. Now, I'm going to change drums, as you can see on the overlay here. If you have a digital overlay, these names that are here are going to show up here. If you don't, then you're still in the dark ages of writing with some masking tape or with our paper overlay. And that's fine too, if that works for you. If you're only using just a small number of inputs and you're not doing crazy routing on every mixer like we're kind of doing here, then handwriting the labels may be fine. You can still label them here just for your own reference, though. So when you open the app, you'll see drums instead of just channel 1 and 2. Now I'll go ahead and change this just to show you what that looks like. So if I touch that, I can bring this up, and I could say, I'm just going to say test. Let's do that. Now it takes a second. The hub actually waits to make sure you're not making a bunch of changes so that it can broadcast them all out at once. This is something you only do, occasionally. So it is a little bit, it kind of waits for a little while to make sure you're not making a bunch of changes. But as you can see, it updated test here. And I'm going to go back. Let's put that back to drums so I don't get confused. So that's a great way to label things, especially if you've got the overlays on your mixers. You can go through here. And now if you're swapping back and forth between multiple groups, so you're in a recording studio and you've got one group that's coming in and working, and then you've got another group that comes in and is working, then what you may want to look at doing is take the text file that's on the hub, and you can create several directories. Create a directory for one band that you're working with maybe the band's name and the date, and then have another directory for another band. And what you can do is just drag that config.txt file into that directory to save it, and then maybe you can drag another config.txt out of another directory and drag it into the hub. And that's how you can kind of swap back and forth and update all the names at once. And that way it's just real quick, and you can swap sessions. So now what I'm going to do is we've looked at the hub. I'm going to go back to devices, and I've got 3 mixers here. I've got left mixer, NAMM mixer, and a right mixer. Now these 2 are under a title called ungrouped mixers. Down here is group 1, and it's got right mixer. Just to touch on that real quick, the grouping is for doing mixer mirroring. And what that does is that, we talked about that actually in the advanced class yesterday. That allows you to have multiple mixers where they are in sync with each other. They're a mirror image of each other. So if you make a change on one, it makes a change on the other. This is awesome because you can quickly see what's going on with the group. So I could go in here and I could change the group from the app. We did that yesterday from the mixer, where you could hold down 2 buttons and spin a knob. But here at a glance, you can kind of see who is grouped together. So ungrouped and grouped. If I touch one of these mixers, it's going to bring that mixer up full screen so I can see it. And if I make any changes here, you can see as I make a change there, it's reflected there. If I make a change there, it's reflected there. So you're basically remote controlling the settings on that mixer. Now, one really cool thing that you can do from the app, and let me mention something here. The app is really not a way to, we didn't really design it as a replacement for a mixer. It's really more of an extension of the system. It lets you get into things, and there's some things that you can do a lot easier from the app, but just about everything that you can do from the app, you can also do from the mixer. We did not want to get into a situation where people have to use the app. We want the system to be completely self-reliant without the app. The app just kind of adds some ease of use. It makes a few things a little bit easier to do. One of those is assigning a channel, what you want on a certain knob. So on the mixer in the advanced session we did yesterday, we showed that you could hold down preset and spin a knob, and then you could get into picking what's on that knob, or even getting into making a submix. So on the app, there's actually a little drop down. In fact, I'm going to go down here. I don't have anything on this channel or anything above it. These are all blank. If I click this little down button, I am given an input list. So I can pick what I want on that knob very easily, or I can go over to submixes. And actually, I just installed the app on this device, so I haven't actually created any submixes, so that's empty right now. But I could go over here, and I could actually put, I don't know, let's pick something that we haven't used yet. I'll go to input 17. And I did that, and you can see now this lit up, and it says input 17 on there. Now, I could go to 18. So you can quickly assign things. But like I said, the app is really more of an extension of the system. So if you're the engineer, then really what you see right here, this is what you would want as your setup. You don't want just the app, because the app can assign things, but if you want to get into listening to what somebody is doing on their mixer to help them mix, or if you want to create a submix, well, you need a physical mixer to do that. The app is only going to give you that control. We don't have the ability to listen through the headphone output for many different reasons. One of them is latency. The latency would be completely astronomical. And the other thing is that the headphone output on these devices is pretty wimpy, especially the new devices don't even have the 1/8" connection. So you're kind of forced into using earbuds, which don't really work in a live sound environment. So we just don't go there. What you want is this. You want an app, and then you want a physical mixer. So say you want to create a submix for somebody. Well, to do that, what you do is you can go to submix, or what you can do is you can create a mix, and then you can save it as a submix. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to initialize, like we did yesterday, by holding pan and aux, and I've just basically put a 1-to-1 mapping on this mixer. Now I can either mix from the app or from the mixer. It doesn't really matter, but I can basically turn some things up, and then from the app I can save this as a submix. And then it gives you the option, says, okay, well, do you want to go ahead and map it to knob number 1? You can say yes, or you can say no, and then it'll put it in the list that you can get to later. But let's call this test. And so now I've just created that as a submix. And if I go into this list, you can see now that's a submix test, or I could go back to being, just an input. Now you see on the overlay, when I put a submix, it puts a box around the screen. That's an indication that is a submix rather than an input. If it's a stereo channel, it puts bars on the left and right to indicate it's stereo. And if it doesn't have either a box or bars, then it's just a mono input. So one question that we get from people sometimes is, okay, I've got this submix created. Now, can I edit it from the app? Well, the answer to that is you can't really edit it from the app, because how are you going to hear what you're doing? Are you just going to blindly start turning things up and down? No. The right way to do that is to basically go in and you can edit this thing on the mixer, because you're going to need to put headphones on in order to do that. So what we can do with it, we can either rename it, we can expand it, which is going to basically take that submix and repopulate the mixer with the channels that were in that submix. And then you can go back to the mixer and you can put the headphones on, or if you're coming line out into a pair of monitors, that's fine too. Now you can go back in and you can start editing it. You could do it from the app at this point if you want to, because you're basically remote controlling the mixer. So if you wanted to go in and maybe add some other things to it, yeah, that's fine. Now, we can give this a different name, because it's basically a different submix. So now we have 2 of them here. We can delete the old one. We can rename the old one. So there's things that you can do here. Now the really cool thing is now that you've created this, say this is like a drum submix. Well, everybody pretty much is going to want that drum submix. So you could go to your other devices. I could go back. I could go to my left mixer, and I could say, okay, I want that submix there as well. And then I want it on my right mixer. There you go. So now you've just sent that drum mix to all those guys. And if you ever want to go back and edit it, you can always edit it and then send it back out again. The other thing that you can do, that's just if you're kind of editing one submix, like maybe the drum submix. The other thing you can do is you could have a whole mix, not just the submix, but say you've got a whole setup of some submixes, some mono channels, some stereo channels. So let's do that. I'm going to go back to my NAMM mixer here. Let's put some other channels here. In fact, I think let me go back to having. Let's go back to having my drums there, and let's just a few channels. I don't really need everything. So now that I've got this, one thing I could do is I could say, all right, you know, this is a pretty good kind of starting point for everybody. Let's send this out to some of these other mixers. So now I basically just copied all of these settings to the other mixers. So that's one quick way if you just need to get like a rough mix going for everybody in the band. You could start from there, and then you could go into each one of these other mixers and change things. Maybe you want to add some other channels, then you could do that. But you can kind of see how the app really makes doing things globally a lot easier. So what I want to do though now, okay, you kind of see how you can get into tweaking and creating submixes and copying settings from mixer to mixer. Let's touch on a few of the advanced things. We talked about naming. Let's do a couple of other things. We did send the mix. If you hit more, another menu pops up here where you got settings, identify grouping, zero out mix, send a text message. So settings brings up some different functions of that one mixer. Intercom is enabled. So if I press the button, I can do the intercom. Well, maybe you don't want that person talking to everybody else. And actually, let me go back. I'm looking at the wrong mixer. So let's go into the settings. Okay. Turn the intercom off. So maybe you don't want this person talking to everybody. They're a loudmouth, and no one wants to hear them talk. So you can disable their intercom. Foot switch is connected. That allows you to use a foot switch that we sell that allows you to use your vocal microphone as both your vocals go into the front of house, and then also your intercom mic. When you hit the button, it mutes it to front of house, and then it engages the intercom automatically. So to do that, you have to enable that function if you're going to use the foot switch with it. Feature lockouts. This is really cool. You can lock out different things on this mixer. Pan button. Maybe you don't want people getting in and changing things like the pan. So you can do this, and when they try to hit it, it lights up all the lights around the master knob dim red just to say and the screen up here says function is locked. So you can do that for the aux button, the preset button, their intercom, channel knobs, meaning all your mix, master knob. You literally could lock out everything on the mixer so that they can't do anything except for plug their headphones in, and that's it. So advanced features lockout. That is basically all the button combinations that we did in the session yesterday. If you don't want them to get into doing grouping and soloing, that all falls under advanced features. So this is done on a per mixer basis. So if you've got a naughty musician, then you can lock things out. And if you have some other people that are, a little more qualified, they can get into some of those settings.
Actually, we have a few of the houses of worship will actually take the mixer and do the lockout function on the intercom, and they use that mixer as a radio feed. They'll actually come out of the balanced line outs. And
that way they're getting the mix
right
without the intercom.
Right.
So
another application.
So here below feature lockouts, we have LED brightness, and we did that on the other session the other day. You can actually dim it all the way down. It'll even cut the LEDs off. It'll put the screens really dim. So that's cool for like broadcast setup. Down here, group sync settings. Sync the master knob and sync the aux volume. That is when you're doing the mirroring between mixers. By default, you don't want the master knobs to be in sync. You want them to be separate, so they have the same mix, but they might want a different master volume. Same thing with the aux input. So if you want them to be together, you can enable that. Down at the bottom, it's got your firmware information for that mixer. we'll go back to the more. Identify, that's cool. That's a way to see what mixer, if you're trying to figure out who's who, you can stop. The other thing you can do is if you just turn a knob, you can see here the icon bounces. So that's another way to kind of figure out which mixer's which. Grouping, this is where I can go in and I can put it into a group. If I want to group it with mixer number 1, now these guys are synced. If I make an adjustment on one, they're going to be in sync with each other. I could even add another mixer to that group if I want to. If I want to zero out the mix, I can send that command and it's going to basically wipe everything, put it back to a 1-to-1, put everything to 0, the pans back in the center. Now, send text message. This is really cool. This is if you have the OLED overlay. I can do that and it's going to flash up here on the screen for about, I think, 5 minutes. We have a timeout, and otherwise, if you do something like there, the remote control message popped up from the other mixer, or if you touch a knob, that's going to go away. So it's not going to stay up there indefinitely. It'll either time out after 5 minutes, or when you make a change, it's gonna go away. So text messaging. From there, it only goes to one mixer. If you want to go to everybody, then you can go back to the main screen and you can actually send that message out to everybody so in a broadcast style. So there's that option as well. I think, is that about everything? Did we cover everything that we wanted to say about the app?
That's about it. Yeah, of course you can change your presets, subdue all that.
Yep, you can. Yep, you can recall different presets, store presets. Of course, you can get into your aux. It's basically everything that you can do from the mixer. You've got that remote control functionality, including intercom. Actually, intercom's locked out, so you can't do intercom on this one because we've locked that feature out. So I guess the main thing is it's plug and play. It's an extension of the system. It is useful if you have a virtual mixer card, which is this guy right here with the balanced left and right outputs. This is a full-blown Hearback Pro mixer in a card format that can either be controlled solely from the app, or it can be mirrored, or we'll say paired with a physical mixer. So the physical mixer can control the virtual mixer. Whatever you do here comes out of these ports here. The app can also control it. So there's a lot of really cool possibilities that you can do with this system. We have a lot of control rooms that use this card just to get the intercom audio. If you don't turn up any of the audio channels and you just have the master knob turned up, then when somebody talks on intercom, it'll come out of those ports. So that's a way to get the talk back into the control room. Think we covered anything. Do we have any questions? No questions.
Man,
I guess we must be covering everything. We don't have any questions.
You are doing
must
quite
be a good
job
teacher.
here. Yes.
So we're adding changes to the app all the time. So right now it is iOS, but what we're looking to do is actually make this thing go web-based so that you can control it from any desktop computer, regardless of operating system, Android, iOS. So this is going to happen here in the future. That's on our list of things to do. Right now, actually, Mac OS X just opened it up to so that apps will work on it. So we'll be releasing that real soon. So if you have Mac OS X, you'll soon be able to do the app on that as well.
And any suggestions to put in there and add to it, let us know.
We want to make your life easier. Yes. So, hey, thanks for tuning in.
We appreciate
it. I guess we'll see you tomorrow. We'll be doing the Octo at 3 p.m. Central Time.
Yeah.
And bye for now.